The building that's no longer next to it was once a post office, and then it becomes a grocery store. It becomes a general store, a plumbing and tinsmith shop. There was a gentleman, Rocco Santinelli, who later opened a barber shop there. It was actually a barber shop there even in the 60s and early 70s. He also produced hair tonic, shampoo, and bleach. And then he also owned the Stone Mountain Cigar Company, and he manufactured Lord Sterling cigars. Basking Ridge Dental, probably the newest renovation building. It was originally Freeman Pennington's black shop in 1871, and then it was renovated in 1928 by Ray Moffitt, who owned a car dealership. It then turns into Waring Chevrolet, and Larry, go ahead. Let's hear that story about Waring Chevrolet.
Waring Chevrolet. It was here for many, many, many years.
Right till the 80s. Yeah, it was like in the early 80s.
Okay, and then one morning, everybody woke up, and there was nothing there. There wasn't a car there. It was like aliens came and took everything away. And there were no desks. There were no file cabinets. It was bizarre, because the night before there were cars in the window. So yeah.
And then it sat vacant for a long time, obviously, because they didn't know what was underneath, whatever. Kind of like on Henry Street, the detailing shop. Remember, that was a gas station, and they really couldn't change it into anything else because of EPA or whatever. So now it's Rich Family Dentistry. It's very nicely done inside. Cam Witt lives in town. He's a dentist. My dentist is a very nice guy. So.
For all you guys that want to know, there's a guy right down there. You can see the back of his head with a green shirt on. He's the one that's going to have the pleasure of cutting the tree down tomorrow. That's he's a local guy.
Did you ever find out where the Warings went?
No, it was like, they just disappeared.
Never found them. They think they're with, who was the Italian that's under Route 287?
Oh, Papa.
Yes, he's with Jimmy Hoffa.
No, I thought he was over in the Meadowlands.
No, he's under 287.
He's everywhere. He's with Judge Prater.
I bet Bob Skay knows where Jimmy Hoffa's buried.
Everybody here rode.
Sorry, Bob, they say it's Route 287. I think it's the Meadowlands.
I don't remember that there was anything there, so anyway, so hence. Okay, Bishop James Methodist Church, as you remember, the pastor lived across the street. This was built in 1853. The original church was purchased from the Presbyterian Church. The original Methodist church is actually off of Maple Street, and it was kind of considered the first apartment building in Basking Ridge. The minister from Bishop James bought it from the Presbyterian Church for $75. It sold about 5 years ago, that three-family house, for $685,000. So obviously real estate has gone up here in historic Basking Ridge. In 1898, Colonel John Jacob Astor IV, who was a prominent real estate developer, he built the Astoria Hotel next to the Waldorf, which was built by his cousin William Waldorf Astor. Through the years, John Jacob Astor IV purchased land in Bernards Township, and in 1898, the Reverend Joseph Appley, a young pastor of the Basking Ridge Methodist Church, decided that he wanted to build a new church. So he would take leisurely walks into the swamp, and he would look for nice round rocks, and he thought this would make a beautiful church. So he would mark them with a white X so that the parishioners would come out with their wagons or whatever, and then they would haul them out, and they plopped them down, and so then he had the church erected. And if you look, there were some really nice, beautiful rocks. So you can see that the new part of the church, is similar, the rocks over there, you go, yeah, they're round. But this obviously has a little bit more character than that. And as you know, Astor His wife and son do survive. He does perish on the Titanic, and his son then buys what is today is our municipal building, which was built in 1912 by Samuel Owens. Astor is the last resident of the estate, which was then called Cedar Hill Farm, and we now call it the Astor Estate, which is our municipal building.
Were they involved in Lord Sterling's stable? Was that part of the Astor property or farm?
Actually, the back parts of the swamp were.
Lord Sterling's stable, was that part of the Astor?
That was part of the property. There was 400 acres on the top of the hill, and I think it was 400 down below also, and that was their stables. And then when they turned it over to the county, the township.
Is that the hat you want, Bob?
The county took the stables, and now we have our own private stables.
So the municipal building, which we call the Astor Estate, was originally owned by, built by Owens, and he was called Cedar Hill Farm, and he actually had 300 acres, and Homestead Village, which is where I live, those streets back there were all part of the peach orchard, and he developed these peaches that were the size of grapefruits, and he sold them to the Child's Restaurant chain.
And it was one of the premier dessert items at Delmonico's were these peaches, and they sold for $1 a piece. And that was big bucks back then.
Back then. But they were huge.
Yeah.
So.
And the property itself was not the way it looks today. Right now, the house is sort of up on a little knoll up there. Mrs. Owen wanted a house set up so she can look down. She had the property built up to the height it is now, and put the house up there.
So it was supposed to be like an English tutor, because I think she was from England, so he did it. So anyway, so that's the story of Bishop James Methodist Church. And as we now approach 5 o'clock, and as we get closer to the Presbyterian Church, which was built in 1839, this church. It is built on the site of 2 other Presbyterian churches dating back to 1717. Much of the glass in the church is original. Notice the beautiful gold dome and weather vane. Additions were added to the church in 1910 and 1949. One of the nicest traditions that we do in Bernards Township since 1923, and only once not held in front of the church, is our annual Christmas Eve sing. And we have held it rain, shine, snow, sleet, fog, whatever. It's on Christmas Eve from 7 to 7:30, and it's held outside the church. There is a volunteer brass band that plays, of which I am part of, and they close the streets down, and all the residents of town are welcome to come. We sing from 7 to 7:30. We sing 10 Christmas carols, and we end with Joy to the World, and we wish each other a Merry Christmas and a Merry Holiday. So, that said, I'm going to take you across the street. I'm gonna finish one more thing, and then I'm getting you tomorrow. They're making it on.
They were taking a picture of George. Oh, doing an interview or something.
Here, we'll stand right here. We'll stand here, and then I'll give you the marker.
For those that don't know, this is the oldest oak tree in North America, and it's being cut down tomorrow. Over 600 years old.
Mary Louise Cannon, and being abducted by Indians, and she's going to take you to their grave. Don't give away my story. Oh, sorry. I'd like to leave you with a poem written by Bill Hine, who was a longtime resident of this town, And it's a very sweet poem, and I usually like to read it underneath the tree, but anyways, it's called In the Town of Basking Ridge by Bill Hunt. His book is in the library. I love to live in Basking Ridge. It's such a friendly town, especially in the evening as the sun is going down. I love to hear the laughter of little children and see a smile upon their face. I love to be in Basking Ridge. It's such a lovely place. I've been to other towns before, but not as nice as this. If I should have to go away, it's this town that I would miss. If you happen to be driving by, just stop and you will see it's the town of Basking Ridge. That's where you'll want to be. And on that note, I'd like to tell them about the Revolutionary War soldiers. I have not. I'm going to let you tell them all about that.
They, you know, you're the expert on this. The original church was 1735?
1717.
1717. It was a wood structure, and it did burn down. It's been replaced once or twice. There are 35 Revolutionary War soldiers that are buried in this graveyard. There is a special person because it's a young lady from our town by the name of Mary Lewis. That was her maiden name. And she's buried around the corner. And if you aren't exhausted from all the walking or too much history, I'd love to tell you her story. We're going to go down to the corner, and then, by the way, there are rumors before I leave the big tree. There are legends that George Washington lunched here under the spread of the oak tree with Lafayette, and definitely Rochambeau passed by it with his troops on the way down to his encampment in Liberty Corner before they partook in some of the battles along Route 22. All along Route 22 was controlled by Cornwallis. However, up here in the hills, George Washington felt very comfortable. This was a very highly Dutch area, and the Dutch, as you know, hated the English after being kicked out of New Amsterdam. So he knew that his movements would not be reported to the English. So Rochambeau was meeting with Washington up here before the battles along Route 22. We'll go to the corner on the stop sign, and we're going to go down right about halfway down if you wish to join me.
And you can see the new tree.
That's
the new oak tree.
It's so pretty. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. You're so welcome.
I love this.
Thank you. Thank you.
So why don't you guys, for just the guys online, why don't you tell them the story about what's going on here? There's a few people here. I'm sure they're locals all around.
As they know, the tree is at least 600 years old. It is definitely the oldest oldest great white oak in New Jersey, if not the United States. After years of failing health, and probably in the early 1900s, parts of it were filled with cement because they believed that would preserve it. Not that it's necessarily that's what killed it. I think 600 years is a long run. But at this point, it has definitely died, and it has to be taken down. So a local tree company, which is it Kyling? Kyling is taking it down tomorrow. They will arrive at 6 o'clock, and by 8 o'clock tomorrow, they will begin the process of taking the tree down.
It's funny how they call it dismantling
of the tree. It's not an easy thing to take down. As you can see, it's cabled in many spots. And of course, it's not necessarily to just drop it because of the fact there are 35 American Revolutionary soldiers buried under there. The oldest grave dates back to 1737.
There's a couple of Larry's friends over here.
I grew up with them.
Did you?
And of course, you know, being the Basking
Come on, Larry, he's a good sport.
Basking Ridge is the center of the universe. It is also rumored, but we won't go into that now, that even underneath this great white oak could be Betsy Ross. But a tale for another day.
That is true.
Betsy Ross.
I wrote a piece. I lied about it online.
With 5 husbands. 5 husbands.
I know my wife refers to her as a hooah.
Yes.
And let's see. Go ahead. What, you got more?
Just within the last couple of weeks, I was watching a documentary about England, and they were talking about their white oak, their great white oak.
Yeah.
And they've got one I can't remember the name of the town it's in, but it's 850 years old.
They're lying.
I know.
They're lying. I thought the best quote about this when I did interviews for people was when this one old guy said, "I love this tree because every 50 years it gets 100 years older." Everybody that tells the story, every 50 years of tree time,
all right.
the tree gets 100 years older. I think they say this tree is 400 years old.
I thought it was 600.
425.
Well, 400 and 425 is the
In 1925, this tree was 425.
425 is the natural life of this particular tree.
I thought it was 300 years, but okay, whatever.
No, okay.
It's good. Let me just show. Here's for tomorrow. What they're doing is, figured I would just show it. They're barricading off this whole street here. They're going to bring a crane in, 2 trucks and a crane, and basically what they're going to do is every one of these pieces are going to have to be craned, tied, and then lifted, and then they're going to bring it down onto the street, cut it into pieces, and then lift it onto the truck. They said there's going to be no stump grinding at all. They're going to try to take it down right to the base. And that's going to take 2 days to do. So a local guy is doing it. See over there in the churchyard, that's George Frick. He's the historian. He's been doing a lot of work for the Oak Tree Project. And I just figured we'd end our tour here at the Great White Oak Tree of Basking Ridge. Tomorrow it's going to be an empty space. A lot of people are sad about it, but it's time. All right, folks. See you.